Right, can I start maybe with your own love of the films, you know, when you first saw Alien and Aliens especially, and what effect they had on you?
I think I saw, usually, like, my memory of Aliens, I probably saw Aliens before I saw Alien, just because I was born in '78. But the and it was actually on the behind the scenes. I had a VHS of behind the scenes of how movies are made. They had House 2, I believe, and Aliens as a making of, and it was the first time I saw kind of the creature, and there's footage from the first movie they show there, and a lot of behind the scenes and how it was made. And I don't know, it blew my mind of just that image of a very big dragon. That's what I remember seeing the first time you see it, when on the footage of the first film, when it comes down and the chains. I thought the chains was part of the creature, and I remember, like, what was scary was that I didn't know what it was, and even on the behind the scenes, it didn't really show you what it was. So then I have more of a strong memory of that actually, when did I actually watch the movies? I watched so many movies at that time that it was a constant bombardment, and there was so much great stuff to rediscover in VHS. Most likely I watched it VHS when I was 12, 13. And but my vivid first experience was watching that VHS over and over, trying to figure out what it was, what were they talking about, like, and my parents telling me, yeah, it's the sequel to Alien, the Eighth Passenger, and the way it's called in Uruguay, where I'm from. So that was my first memories. It was just the terrifying aspect of not knowing what it was, and I hadn't seen anything similar, and for a monster feature in a way. Right?
So let's fast forward to recent history, and the franchise has been very successful, but the first two are held as classics. When did you wake up and think, I want to be part of that? And how did it come about? How did you pitch the film?
It was right after Don't Breathe. When I finished that, I think someone asked me, what could you do if you could do anything? I said Alien, no doubt. So that's why sometimes in 2017. And then I think I had a kind of a random meeting at Scott Free, and I pitched them. It's not that I pitched them. They were, I think they were starting to do Covenant already, and the Neil Blomkamp thing had fell apart. And just as a fan, I was like, guys, if you do something, please. I was like, well, what would you want to see? They asked me just as a fan, and I said, like, I would love to. I don't know, I think it's time for this to go maybe on this direction. And pretty much I pitched the vibe of this film and the younger characters based on that scene from Aliens, seeing a bunch of kids running around. I think I would be curious to see what happens when those people grow up and realize they're in a mining colony. There was no future for them whatsoever. I think it's just going to stay there. What would they do? I was very intrigued about what would happen when those characters grow up. And it kind of, and he stayed there in the air, just kind of stayed there. It was really not a pitch. I just mentioned it. I give kind of my passion for it and what I would do with it. Not that I would do, what I want to see. That was the whole thing. And and then a couple of years went by, and someone, and Steve Asbill, who runs 20th Century, caught wind of that story, that had pitched something and really had mentioned something. And he called me up. It was like, is it true that you want to do any of the movie? I said, yes. And he's like, will you tell me, what would you do? And by that point, I had spent so much time with this story in my head, with this fantasy of this alien movie that I was never going to make, but if I could, I would. And so I had almost a pitch there at that point. It was the basic, the core, the heart of the movie that you don't really get to see here, which is the relationship between Rain and Andy. That was really what got it going. There's a very, very interesting dynamic. Subtract all the aliens, subtract all the horror, and there's still a story there. You'll want to see till the end of how that relationship unfolds, which is quite new as well for the franchise. Like, as much as obviously we love the characters from the first movie, there's no meaningful relationships, really. You don't know how they feel for each other, or who is friends, or you just, there's none of that. There's no time for that a lot of times in these movies. But we figure out a way to tell a compelling horror, action, thriller, and still get a good story there, I think. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And he asked me, when I told him what the story was, he loved it and asked me if I wanted to write and direct it, and I said no. So yeah, so here we are.
Now, you sort of alluded to trying to take it in a new direction, but how easy is it for you as a director to put your stamp on a franchise that has James Cameron and Ridley Scott as previous directors? How do you make it your own?
I don't try to, really, to be honest. I trying to put myself out of the equation, really, when it comes to these things. I just don't. It's inevitable that if you do it, there'll be your stamp, I guess. It's just you do it, no one else. If I did it, if I'm there, I'm so involved with it, and I really make them super handmade, these movies. I'm there in the floor puppeteering a lot of the things you see there. Every face hugger on the water that you see is me shaking this piece of rubber on the water, holding the camera at the same time and trying to get something that looks good on the water. So I'm super involved in the way. So I try not to think about that, because I don't want to make it about myself. I just really want to make about the movies and the characters and the things that I love from the previous ones. And I think the combination of them plus new things will make it something new naturally. It's tricky, because as I was asking you right outside, it's like, out of the stuff you saw, what doesn't feel like it belongs, right? It's a fair question in a way of like, does it feel alien? Does part of the job in a way is to make sure that it feels authentic, that that you watch it, go like, that looks like an alien movie that existed and didn't know about how, you want to see it. Now at the same time, like if you just exactly if it was a remake, it would be a remake of the first one. It's not it. And you have to introduce new things that at first always people might go, what? But I'm sure when someone heard there's gonna be colonial marines on Alien now, when they heard about Alien, it sounded silly maybe, because marines were not part of the first movie at all. So you have to understand that obviously all the time you have to bring things that eventually hopefully will be part of it. So really to your question, is more for me, the fun is to have all these films made by all these directors that happen to be, regardless of Alien, they're all on their own right some of my favorite directors. When I remember Jean-Pierre Jeunet was, when I know that he was going to make one of them, I was completely insane about his movies, from Delicatessen to City of Lost Children. I was just fucking loving his movies. So all those directors I love, and then you have all this pool of ideas, all these great ideas they have through all the years, through all these movies, that I get to kind of take some of them and plus new, kind of remix them in a new way and compress them in 2 hours. That imagine for a new member, which I know we're all very selfish and we're all fans and want it to be for you, but at the same time, what I really want to do with a lot of these stories is pass it into the next generation that haven't heard about it. They want those kids that piss you off when they go like, oh no, I haven't seen it. I mean, I met a lot of young actors for this movie, and some of the things I heard were crazy. One of them was like, yeah, I just saw the first two ones. Oh great, which one you like the most? I think probably more Prometheus than Covenant. And I was like, yeah, you're not getting the job. There was a lot of that, and you cannot blame it. And these kids were like mid-20s, right? And as a movie fan, what I want to do is like, I'll show you why those movies are great. Because sometimes you watch them, you show them the old movies, and they go like, I don't know, looks old, the effects, they kind of, so you gotta like, I gotta fucking hell, I gotta fix that. I gotta make sure that now you gotta understand. So that part of the motivation is that as well, to kind of, regroup, take all those best ideas and put them in 2 hours. That is a punch in the face that they cannot, ignore. And again, the beauty of it is like, all those ideas that we're very familiar with, a lot of people are not. And I cannot believe, I'm so jealous to imagine someone's gonna sit down there knowing, what is this thing, Alien? Yeah, I heard about it. It's like a very old movie. What is this? And just getting run by the whole thing and discover, never see coming, the chest burster and all the things that we know, but they don't. Plus a bunch of other shit that happens in the movie that is very alien, that I hopefully will impact them in a similar way that it impacted us when we watched the original films, right?
So obviously we saw it's produced by Ridley Scott. How is that? You know, and what kind of advice did he give you about entering this world?
It's terrifying. I mean, I remember the first call with him when I met him. It was a Zoom call just to tell him basically what it was, and so I'm about to go into the call, and someone from the studio says, "Don't pitch him a story." And I just gave him like kind of the vibe of what you want in the world. I was like, "Gotcha." So I'm super nervous, and I rarely am with this thing after a few years of working in Hollywood. But this is fucking Ridley Scott, right? And I'm gonna tell him how I think an alien movie should be made. So it's like the cheekiest position ever. So and I go into and I kind of give him the vibe, the whole thing. Yeah, I think it's a bit of this and a bit of that. And I remember like Ridley at the end, I think I was like, "But you don't have a story. I haven't heard a story here." I was like, fucking hell. I did have a story, but someone advised me not to tell him the story. So at that point I couldn't say, "Well, by the way, I do have a story," but they told me I had to just go, "Okay, well, let me think of one." So the first call didn't go so well. Ridley was like, "You need to bring me back a full story." I was like, "Okay, we'll do, sir." and then we had another call that went better, where he heard the story and loved it. And then it's been just a series of meetings with him that have been lovely, you know, like when the very beginning, once we had a script, sit down with him and get his 2 cents on the script. He was very supportive from the beginning. There was no, like my habit sometimes, you don't see eye to eye on something at the end. No, he was full on like, "You got to make this movie. The script is great." I think the advice was, ironically, very similar to some of the conversations I had with Cameron. Eventually, it was one thing that they both really go at, and Sergio and Ridley insisted upon. It's like the idea that as a director making this movie, sometimes you think because they're bigger, you do less or something. And he was like, "That's the other way over. You got to do everything yourself. You have to be involved in everything, and it has to be very personal. There's no way you can make these movies to really blow beyond their budgets. It looks way bigger if you think," and that's true in all those movies. You know, meeting with a lot of people involved with the movies, you learn that over and over. Like meeting with a lot of people that, because of the first movie, they're not alive, most of them, but everybody alive on the side of Aliens that I met with, a lot of the miniature build, there's VFX supervisors. Everybody will insist on that thing that has to be really handmade, because Aliens, it was a low budget movie by all measures, as you know. It was not a big budget. They were like, do whatever they could with what they had, and they watched the movie and it feels massive, right? But that is because there's a work behind it that the director and everybody is like giving it everything and being there on the floor working on everything. You build in things yourself. I mean, in this movie I do VFX shots myself, because we're run out of money at some point, and I can do visual effects, so there's a few shots I'll do that myself, and many things like that. It's just really the only way that you cannot depend on just hire all the right people and we'll have a great movie, right? Like that's why I think it's a filmmaker franchise more than anything else, right? These are movies where it's always been dependent on who's the director. It's been a big thing, an important part of it, and I think because of that, because you have to really make it very personal by being really super involved in every detail of it.
Maybe you could speak a bit to that. To what extent is it a practical film? You hired Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff. You've brought the old teams back. To what extent, obviously, you have CGI tools to use?
And Alec, Tom, those two split, and this one was just Alec Gillis.
Right.
Yeah, and Shane Mayhem from Legacy, all like Stan Winston, people, right? They all like Stan's right hand people on Aliens. It's a very it's like the rule of thumb is like, if it can be done practical, it will be done practical, right? Which is not always the case. I mean, Hollywood can be sometimes very lazy. And I'm saying lazy in the fact that it's not because when they do it CG, it's not because it's cheaper. It's not. It's actually more expensive. It's quicker. It's just quicker. It saves you a headache on set. But I didn't get myself into this, art just to say, well, the monster, this next scene, the monster comes through a door. Well, shoot the door. Okay, done, move on. It's a fucking boring thing to do. Now, when you bring the 1 ton like animatronic, believe me, it's gonna suck all your day to try to get him to go through a door. But man, when you see it, you're there. You got my job really. The way I see it with these things is almost like, when you're someone make a documentary in the jungle, and you gotta go there, and you wanna see things, and when you're there, it happens to all of us when we witness something in person. We take our photos, we try to capture to share it back home to our friends, and always you show the photo, it goes like, it doesn't capture really the view, but you should have been there, right? So that is what I want when I do these things. I try to create this whole, it's almost like a play. Most things are real. You see it, the set's there's no green screens. I don't want to see green screen try to pretend the whole set you've seen that shot when they come out of the airlock is so real. Everything you see, that set, you could have got lost inside of it. And so the creatures are there, and there's shit running around, and we do every gag that we can create, we create it. And then my job is I wish I could show the audience what I'm seeing here, and that's what I do. I film it and bring it to you. But that's kind of the experience. Instead of the opposite will be like there was nothing there on the day, and someone else in a computer somewhere in the world will create the shot, and I will see it later. I don't get any joy out of that, So I get the joy out of seeing it happen in front of us. So everything I could have that was possible to do practical, we did. We went above and beyond to do that, and we built miniatures as well. Ian Hunter, which built from Mars on Total Recall to First Man and Interstellar. He's kind of the last great guys that did miniatures, build the ships for us. And we scan them, and there's CG versions of it, but they're not built in a computer. Even the CG versions of the ship are a scan of a real miniature that was made by hand by artists the same way they used to make them. So when you look at the detail, you can see all the handmade work, and then other shots are literally just us shooting the miniatures, right? So we did that. We got Phil Tippett to do some stop motion for some. There was a shot that we needed that I thought could be done with stop motion, and we got Phil to come with his team and do a shot for us. So that's I hope I answer your question. Anything that could have been done that way was done that way. And then there's other scenes that push it more, that you need to bring out techniques, but it always done with that approach to make sure ideally we fool you, right? Which is what I think movies have, and at a certain extent have stopped trying to do, I think it's different. Maybe because it's a different thing. I don't know. Not to go at Marvel or DC or these big movies, but I don't think they're trying to be photorealistic. They're fun and colorful, but no one trying to get the creature or whatever it is for you to believe that's in there. Which I think the best movies used to do. The special effect movie was to be, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing this, right? And it seems like these movies have gave up for the most part, but we haven't, which has been the whole, which has been an enormous task for us and everybody to really push everybody involved in understanding that, particularly Alien, you need to believe what you look at as real, otherwise it just doesn't work, right?
Right. I'll ask a couple more questions, then we'll throw it open to audience questions. But I know you don't want to reveal too much about the story, but I'm correct in saying it's set between Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will our watching of Alien Romulus enhance our appreciation of the story of the first two films?
It's not necessarily like that. No. It's not. There might be a few things there that you go, oh, now I understand that part of Alien or Aliens. But it was mostly something that made sense for a premise, that it needed to take place a few years after the first one. More about that than take a few years. I mean, I know that I don't know why I keep hearing that. Maybe part because I said it, that it takes place between 1 and 2. It's true. But let's see more of it takes place after 1, which means the same. But for some reason, no one says takes place between 1 and before 2 and 3. No, which does. But I was reading that over and over. It was but I can see that it's because people read on that what's true about the movie, that it has the DNA of both movies. That is kind of the child of both movies combined visually, aesthetically, and story-wise. Has a bit of that. So, but yeah, technically it takes about 10 years after the first movie. 20 years after the first movie, roughly. There's a date actually. When you watch a movie, pay attention. There's a screen that pops up. There's a date, there's a year, and there you go. And that's when you know exactly what year it's set on. It's the only chance you have. If you miss that screen at the beginning, you missed what year is it. But just like in the other movie. So, but yeah, it takes place there, and it makes sense for the story, and you'll see also it was I'll talk about this before that it was my way to make sure that the technology could have the style of Alien, obviously the old things from the era of Alien, and there would be other things that were the newer technology that you could see how that will eventually in a few years become the technology of Aliens, right? So it was more for my pleasure of being able to create a world that felt like the child of those two, the transition between the technology of one heading towards the other.
And obviously, there are essential things for an alien film. We've seen a lot of them in the clips. Face huggers, chest bursters. It's an extraordinary palette to work with, what Giga has left you. How much do you stick to the rules, and there are unbreakable rules, and how much can you swim around in that world and change things, or elaborate on them?
I wouldn't dare to change anything, really, to go against anything that's canon. No, not at all. If there's any changes on things that I really try to even take the novels as canon and the comics. I really try to make an effort as much as I can to respect the canon, not only of the movies but beyond, as much as I can. It's hard because there's contradictions in the same world of the once you expand to the novels and everything. But so I really try not to change anything. I constantly thank God for Xenopedia and things like that. But that was always open on my laptop while I was writing to just go and check on the details of what era this androids were created, or even this weapon, when is technically the pulse rifle. If you want to know, the information is there because someone wrote a novel, something about it, who invented the pulse rifle from that movie and when the model exists. So I really go to all those details to make sure no one can tell me that I messed up. Well, somewhat will, and I'm sure I did at some level, but at least I really careful, and I love to see, I mean, while I was making the movie, I would drive people nuts with details like that. Just go like, no, you got that wrong, because what? Because someone wrote a novel where they explained that, God damn it, and I have to redo everything again because it's betraying something in the canon. And I remember a lot of people involved in the movie at first giving me a little bit like, come on, give me a break. It's just a movie, or it's just like, come on, like they will give me some of that. And I go, and I always go them, yeah, wait, you will wait and see until when people start seeing this. And the first teaser came out, and all of them, they will call me one because like, fuck man, like it is religion for these people, which it is. It is like, for me as well, it's like, this movie is people want to believe, like we all do, that is real, that is not all made up, which it is all made up. It is all made up. All of them, though, it's all made up. But we want to feel as is not, as is. There's our books that are important, like the Bible, any sacred thing. It's kind of sacred about it, and you want to believe. So the problem of betraying the canon and changing too much is like it makes people go like, no, wait, if they could change it, if this time is so it's all made up. That's the real. But I'm not. Truly, that's what I don't want to do. I want to make sure that everybody goes like, no, everything is consistent. It makes sense, like compared with all the other movies. So I try not to change much. There's some of the changes that actually there's an explanation why this movie is slightly different, right? When it comes to the creatures, or it's not exactly the same. You gotta see. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but whatever change there is there, face huggers have a slightly different skin, things like that. They'll justify on our story. There was no change for the sake of it. That's I guess go to the question of not trying to make a map on myself. Like when it was about thinking how the Xeno's gonna look like, I was gonna go, how is Fede Xeno look like? Who gives a shit? I think people want to see the original Xeno one. And I was like, and I did. But there's always my imprint thing. And like I do love the biomechanical aspect of it that some filmmakers just ditched through every movie became more organic. I think the biomechanical aspect of it is what's terrifying, because you don't understand how does he have a pipe on his head that looks so mechanical and looks like an engine. Like that shit is terrifying. Once he's a creature, he's all organic. Like he became by resurrection. It's like, well, it's a creature. I understand it. And what's scary is what you don't understand. So I think there's stuff like that. I tried to really be as purist as I could and really go back to everything that was the origin of it, the creatures of the first film, and the xenomorph and the face huggers and everything. They have slight evolutions in certain levels, but it will be too long to explain why.
Okay, who has a question? The gentleman just in the middle here.
Thank you. On the topic of practical effects, you've mentioned the animatronic, and you mentioned that Tom didn't work on this film, who'd historically been in the suit in the previous films. Is all the practical alien in this animatronic, or is there any suit performance at all?
There's suit performance as well, yeah. Yeah, there's a mix. It always depends on what's the task, like what's the shot. So in most of the close-ups you see there, when there's a lot of facial animation, is an animatronic, right? When there was more movement and you don't see them here much, but when they were crawling on something or on top of something, that usually is a performer. There was a combination of both, yeah. So it really depends on the shot. Like again, but we did have the guy in the suit, which it's like when you see them walking in, it's always funny because someone have to bring them, holding them because they don't see shit. So when finally you see the xenomorph coming to set, I was like, hey, he's coming, here he comes. And I was because I saw the pieces, right? I haven't seen the guy in a suit. I saw the pieces, and of course I bet in my whole career that the guy in the suit's gonna look great. Right, because that's what we all want to see. And then to bring the guy like by hand, like someone is holding Mama. The alien, the head bumps, everything. It's just hilarious. You should see it. I mean, anyways, that's why movies is all about point of view. Put the camera in the right place. But it was hilarious to see it like that. But you see behind the scenes, the very few behind the scenes there is of the first movie. It is also kind of funny, when you just see the guy just standing there. Like it just doesn't work when he's just standing there. So part of the art of this is to know how to shoot them, right?
Did Legacy build the suit, or was it?
Yeah, yeah. We spread the whole. Technically, the way you do this, like always in this movie, it's like everybody's trying to save money all the time, right? You're trying to do it in every, when you do your budget, try to make it for less money, amount of money possible. One of the main things you do that is you just make sure you have one vendor, you have one someone to give you a good price. So at first, what Line Producers did to all these companies. And like Gil's company on one hand, Shane's company, which is Legacy. You see both of them behind the scenes of aliens talking side by side. That we went to Weta Workshop, that had never worked in an alien movie. They were desperate. They were like, please, would love to make one. And you basically ask them like, how you get a better price is by you give them everything to one person. And I have met with them, and at some point I was like, but let's not say, let's figure out another way, because I wanted all of them to be involved, and I wanted, above all things, which we achieved that, it was such a dream, I wanted Alex and Shane to work together again, because both of them have two of the biggest companies there, and they just compete with each other all the time, but they're like brothers. They grew up next to Stan Winston and making all these films. And Shane hadn't done one since Aliens, because Alec did most of the ones that followed. And he was like, Shane built the Queen, right? Like we're talking about it, like apart from many other legendary Hollywood creatures. But so he couldn't wait to go back. He couldn't wait to go back, and the thing he wanted to do the most was to put the dome back on. Because the story Shane tells the most about Aliens was that early on, Cameron goes like, get rid of the fucking dome. Because he wanted to see the thing. He thought, don't look silly. So the day when we had the first meeting, I was like, we gotta put the dome back on. He was like, yes, I gotta be there to do it. So Shane was there to put the dome back on the creature. But there was also the beauty of it was that they will help each other. Each one of them had their shop and their teams, but because we're always trying to achieve a lot more that was planned, there was a moment like Alec was, I think it was through the chest burster, and we just needed, that thing you see there is like 8 people puppeteering that thing. It's all practical. We saw that it's not a frame CG on that creature, and we needed more people. And I went someone tell Shane, and Shane goes like, "Oh, let's go help Alec." Comes Shane with his team, walk in slow motion, just goes in there, gets under the table, and to me, to see that both of them together, kind of shoulder to shoulder working, it was that's what I wanted. So we ended up spending more money just for me to have the pleasure of seeing all those people reunited. But even with there was a local guy in Hungary that does amazing visual effects, special effects. He's the king there of that grew up loving these guys, right? These are his idols, right? And then he was there on the table as well because he did the prosthetic piece of the body that was broken. So And he had gone to Hollywood when he was like 18 and went to the Stan Winston thing and saw them working, and now he was there on the floor working with them, and the Weta guy who also was there, who couldn't believe that was doing a chest burster scene, helping with his legends. So it was for me, it was a thing that I never dreamed in my life that I was going to be able to see, like reuniting them together on set, working together, all this people that work on those classic movies. So anyways, I don't remember the question, but it's just love to talk about that.
Okay, who else has a question? Question right in the middle and then one at the front here. So, yeah, just coming here with the mic.
Hi, thanks very much for all of this. I guess one of the most inconsistent things among all the other films is maybe the speed of the life cycle, like how quickly the thing bursts out. What did you decide?
We do. It's always kind of gray area a little bit. Our movie happens to have a time clock that you hear once in a while, and Mother will say there's a T- going on for quite a big chunk of the movie. So that kind of gives away probably the time frame. I would say probably it's not as fast definitely not as fast as Covenant. That was too much. I don't know if you know. I've watched that movie a lot of times, and actually, like I said, I enjoy every Alien movie. Every night to the theater to watch an Alien movie, I had a great time. Because even when a movie fires me up to get mad about something, I have a great time. Because I go with my friends afterwards and we have big fights about it, and after the fight, I just feel alive. Like great movies, like it's great. Way better than a movie that makes you go, yeah, whatever, that was okay. Yeah. So, but I remember I showed it a lot of times, and then I rewatched it recently again for some reason, and finally understood that there's one that jumps on Damien Bashir's face for a second, right? For a second, they take it out. He's impregnated. Did you know that? Did you notice that? It's crazy. Then that's the one that gets on board. Right? They find it. But there's a moment, you see his body there. He goes like, what the fuck? When did that? And it's just that instant. But it's Ridley's movie, so it's canon. There's no way about it. You cannot cherry pick. Just go like, oh, maybe I like that. I don't like this. I take everything. Right? I accept it. So, but ours is not that. It's more in line with the first movie. There's a bit of a time jump in some moment that just would allow it to go. Okay, that probably was enough time for the creature to grow. It might be a little bit faster, I would say, but I haven't timed it yet. But it's probably it might feel faster. But in the first movie, it's quite fast as well. I mean, they land on the planet, they're there. It's just the thing falls off the face. It just go on, and who knows exactly? I mean, you might know exactly how much time is supposed to happen by the time Kane seems to be okay. And mostly by the time he comes out and they go chase it, it's kind of right away. I mean, they don't wait 2 days to go chase the creature. They go right away looking for the creature and they find it. It's big. So that growth is always a shock, right? For anybody that hasn't seen the movie, how come it grows so fast. But that's what's terrifying about it at the same time. So it's kind of more in line. Everything tries to be more in line of the first film when it comes to those things.
Question, person in front of the brown coat.
I can shout, I'm quite loud. So firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us a sneaky cut so that we're not spoiled for when we go to the cinema, because I was torn, like I don't want people to have seen bits I haven't seen, but I still want to have fun at the cinema. And in the interest of being a greedy Alien fan, do you think there's more after Romulus that you might want to contribute to the Alien franchise? Is there, do you have the potential to do?
I always say yes to that question, and I've been lucky that I made movies like Evil Dead and No Breathe both did real well, and we had the conversation afterwards. There's something about I really don't know. I don't make a lot of movies, as you guys might notice. I don't feel the world need another random movie, so I just make them when I feel like, okay, this is special, this needs to be made. And also I have a ton of hobbies. So I spend my life doing other things apart from movies. But so my instinct is always yes, is like, because if I love the world and the characters, you kind of want to continue. At the same time, I'm a lot of, once I've done it, I've done it. So I don't really know. And I really never, ever think about anything else until I'm done. I forced that on myself of not thinking about it. And I don't want to get distracted. I think the movie experience for me, it's sacred. It's truly sacred. I think when people see the cinema and the logos start, it's almost religion. It's something that everybody thinks, maybe this is it. This is the one that will stay with me forever, because it happens to us before. But it's like whoever goes on dates, like they fell in love once in their life, and they always think that this is it, and they're really too confident in, it's not. But same with a lot of movies. 5 minutes in, it's like it's not. But there is always the expectation that it is, right? And so I take that so seriously that I would never get distracted until the movie is done that I will think about anything else.
So the sequel's already been made, hasn't it? So
yeah. He is an alien.
and another question from the gentleman in the front.
Hello. Firstly, thank you for putting it on so far away from my bedtime. It's kept me awake all day, I'm sure. You talk a lot about practical effects. How easy was it to factor in the laws of physics in space and this movie in practical effects?
The laws of physics. What do you mean by that?
Well, just space in general.
Since we were talking about this outside, I think movies, what they do all the time, well, not all the time, once in a while, movies kind of give a step forward in regarded to how things look, or special effects or sound effects. I still remember the first time, when Ed Norton punches Brad Pitt on Fight Club, and it sounds like, and you go, fuck. And I remember thinking, like, that's how a punch really sounds. Because if you remember, 1 month before, movies still were doing like, right? We were used to that. And that was the first one that sounded like just punching meat and go, finally, movies have we're more honest, it's more real. Right? And we're constantly looking for that. Like the same with the way the Beretta sounds on Terminator 2, when he opens fire on Arnold on the mall. That guns the week before sounded every movie, and that sounded like really dry, and because Cameron was like, that's how guns really sound. So I think there's a constant thing that movies try to do, right? That you go like, we've been doing this shit like for so long. Well, we got used to that thing sounds like this or looked like that when it's not what it is, and you make the effort and you change it, and hopefully it works. So a lot of the things that we've done here, I mean, the chest burster is one of those. It's more like I wanted people to see it and go like, that's probably how chest bursters are born in real life. The movies were silly. It comes out, they go, fuckers. It just runs away. I felt, as classic as that is, I felt this was more realistic. He's born. I remember my direction, if you hear the behind the scenes, is like, okay, go for mama, go for mother's scent, and the creature goes and tries to smell the mother, try to look for his mother. That's why they're so angry, these xenomorphs. They're born and the mother's dead right next to them every time. So I thought the approach of trying to make it like, that's why I'm trying to achieve with all these things. That you see it and you go like, oh, that's the real version of a xenomorph or a chest burster. Like, so we because I think the question of gravity comes out and tells everybody that's how space actually is, right? It's no sound and it's like constant evolution. So and once those things are done that way, it's hard to go back, right? It's hard to go back with punches sound and gunshots and all those things. So a lot of this is post-gravity in a way, a lot of space stuff. Actually, our movie opens, which was a whole thing. I don't know, for some reason, like there was some pushback and everybody around me at the beginning, and now they all accept it and it's fine. But the movie opens and there's a shot of space, spoiler alert, and for the first few, I don't know, like it's a few minutes, there's no sound whatsoever. You're in space, and there's a whole sequence, and you're like, is the sound wrong? Like, thank God they have the logo before to let you know that. So we're really trying to push a lot of things to be as realistic as they can be. I think Alien is kind of grounded in science fiction at the end of the day. It's not fantasy. If you suddenly, I felt it was indulging too much in something that felt like it was crossing into the Star Wars side, it was like, fuck, I don't know, what are we doing? And we start pull back. It's trying to be as grounded as it can be. That's why at the same time it lends itself for animatronics, because I prefer the slow presence of the xenomorph, like the original movie, instead of too much of the jumpy ninja shit that happened, you know, in later movies. Or it's more like a Nosferatu Dracula presence than just some like guy that is angry and screaming all the time, you know. So I wanted to see him a bit more classy way, I guess.
Cool. That's a lovely place to end. A classy way of seeing an alien. Yeah, there's 100 more questions we could ask, but we've run out of time. Can you just give your congratulations and thanks to Fede Álvarez?